It's now 7 p.m., Tuesday, January 17, 2017. I'd like to call the Selectmen's meeting to order at the Sutton Town Hall. Would everyone rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next would be public forum, limited to 5 minutes per topic. Discussion or comments about town employees or agency members shall be avoided so as not to violate anybody's individual rights. Is anyone here for public forum? Next would be the minutes for the Board of Selectmen meeting on January 3rd, 2017.
Mr. Chairman, I move to accept the Board of Selectmen minutes from January 3rd, 2017 as presented.
Second.
Motion's been made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-4 and 1 abstention. Next on the agenda would be a public hearing on alcohol violations. And I'll have the clerk read the notice, please.
As posted in the December 29, 2016 Millbury Sutton Chronicle. Notice of public hearing. Notice is hereby given under Chapter 138 of Massachusetts General Law, Section 34, Service of Alcohol to an Underage Person. Public hearing will be held on January 17, 2017 at 7 p.m. for 2 liquor license disciplinary hearings. These violations involve Sutton Wines and Liquors, located at 160 Worcester Providence Turnpike, Unit 17A, and Tony's Pizza, located at 146 Providence Turnpike, in said Sutton, Massachusetts. This hearing is open to the public and shall be held in the Wally Johnson Meeting Room on the 3rd floor in the Sutton Municipal Center, located at 4 Uxbridge Road in said Sutton.
Motion to open the...
Motion to open the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Jim?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As the clerk noted in the hearing notice, we had a compliance check on November 16, 2016, this last November. While a number of establishments passed the compliance check, 2 failed. Sutton Wine and Liquors and Tony's Pizza. I think there are representatives from both of those entities here today to address the board, but before that, following the liquor license regulations, it's appropriate to hear from the chief and maybe Sergeant Nunemarker first.
Chief and your representatives, come up, please.
Do we have to swear people in?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, you'll have to swear people in. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth?
And raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for entertaining us tonight. As was indicated earlier, on a yearly basis or sometimes biannually, we conduct compliance checks, and the process hasn't changed. We've done the same process over a number of years. We begin the process with an advertisement, generally either on our Facebook account or through the Millbury Sutton Chronicle, just letting people know, residents and the business owners, that we will be conducting compliance checks in the near future. And I think in this case, we advertised it about 6 weeks prior to actually conducting the compliance checks. And as we normally do, we conducted them very systematically by using someone that was underage. And prior to doing any checks, we have a system of checks and balances where it becomes assured that the person has not consumed alcohol and will not consume alcohol while conducting the compliance checks. With that said, I'll turn it over to Sergeant Nunemarker, who actually conducted the checks on that evening.
There was 2 different dates that it was done due to some establishments being closed at the time. The first one was on November 16th. At that point, Officer Monteverdi came in plain clothes and assisted the underage buyer to the different establishments. I supervised from a distance. They tried several establishments which either got denied or the establishments that were shut down. The ones that were closed at the time were the 2 golf courses and the King's Campground Country Store. Those 3 were addressed again on the 23rd of November. King's Campground Store was closed on that day as well during daytime hours, so it's believed that they are only open for the campground season. The 2 golf courses did not allow the underage person to purchase any alcohol on that day. On the 16th, again, the 2 places that sold were Sutton Wines and Liquors and Tony's Pizza. In Sutton Wine and Liquors, she went in and got a 6-pack of Twisted Tea, came out, and the clerk rang her out without asking for an ID. She came out, told Officer Monteverdi, who notified myself. I proceeded into the establishment. I actually spoke with the owner of the establishment and informed them of the violation. He wasn't the clerk at the time. It was a different clerk who later admitted to selling it to her. And then Tony's Pizza was right after that. We went up and she asked for Bud Light beer over where the taps are. A younger employee that works there provided her with a Bud Light bottle, put it on the counter. At that point, our underage operative left the beer on the counter and took the receipt with her and came back, told us. I went in, I spoke with the manager at the time, who was Piero, spoke with him about it. He called the employee over, who first denied it and then admitted that she had sold it to her without asking for an ID.
I'd like to hear from the people one at a time. Okay. Why don't we have Tony's Pizza come up first, please? Yeah, come up, and there's another chair if you need one over there.
Okay.
You want to swear them in, Mr. Chairman?
And, yeah, and before I start, I'd just like to swear you in, so would you just raise your right hand?
Yes.
Solemnly, here to tell the truth and the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. And would you sit down?
Yes.
And just relax, and I just want you to state your
Yes.
name and
Yes.
whoever's going to
Yes,
speak.
I'm
and-
Tony from Tony's Pizza, and my son next to me.
Yeah, I'm Nick Drakakis, also from Tony's Pizza.
I like to say this, we're very upset and disturbed of what happened. We wanted to apologize to the board, to the police, either to the whole town. How can we fix it? I mean, that's right now, there's no excuses for us to go through, there's nothing to excuse. We only is a plain sorry, and we're taking a different approach now. I'm worried sometimes things happen for a reason, and a very hard approach. We educate everybody differently. One at a time, of course, we did something more than that, but that doesn't only that thing we do. We card everybody. There's no matter what age. Like lately, they do it a lot of places, and we follow that route because it's the most effective, I guess, to check any age of no matter 50, 60, 70.
Before, our policy was anybody that looked under 40 that you would card them, but that didn't seem to work as good as just card everybody, regardless. Even me, myself, last night, I carded somebody that was 79, and we were joking around about it, but, you know, that's the only, as good as we can get to the point. The other thing that we're looking at now is our POS system, the POS at the store. Like you see at some supermarkets that you can punch in the person's birthday if there's an alcohol purchase on that ticket, and if it doesn't, if it's not of age, the register won't open or it'll deny the sale. We're looking to do something like that too with the people that do our computers. So we're trying to see like how 100% can you possibly get it. And right now, just by carding everybody that orders anything is as far as we've gotten, but hopefully we can catch up with the computer too and make it like 1000%, you know.
We also educate people there. Not only that, So how about if somebody walks inside already have a couple of beers? How can you do that? Why you be loud, to be speak different, call the manager, don't serve anybody like that. We do other things too. For example, like somebody gives you, say, give me 2 beers. Okay, I need 2 IDs. Where's the other people? Find the people, see the people, come close to you. Not like just, okay, from far away. I mean, we do things different now. We already start. As a matter of fact, one of our main employees are here, Lisa. She's all well trained, and she does every time a young kid walks in the store to serve, over age, of course, legal, will be talked every day. Will be how to do, what to do, anything to do with ringing beer or wine.
I think we were just doing it when they first got hired. You teach them, a little training, and then we'd leave it, but never retrain, kind of like refresh. Hey, don't forget the card. Don't forget to do this. Don't forget the little things that matter, instead of just telling them once they first started the job. And, 6 months in, it's not fresh in their heads. So we're trying to remind our employees that are mostly 16, 17, 18, and, they're kind of not paying attention half the time to you, but...
So basically, we're taking definitely a different approach, a completely different approach. Very, very effective, and we don't want nothing to happen, We live in this town. We have kids and grandkids live in this town. We don't want nothing to happen, anything to hurt this town. So we're here to tell you that we are working very hard for it, and we're going to fix the problem. And we're sorry about that.
Okay. I'd like to open it up for discussion with the selectmen members, and start with you, Dave.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So first of all, we appreciate that you've come before us tonight. From my own impression, I will say I appreciate that it sounds like you're taking this very seriously. It sounds like you've already begun to implement some things that are different than what you had done before, and I think that's an appropriate step to take in this case. Just for clarity, I think what you said is that you are now carding everyone, and that was not your policy at the time that this incident had occurred.
Yes.
You're aware that the board adopted about a year ago now a new alcohol compliance policy, is that correct?
Not familiar, no.
So I believe this was sent in the mail to every establishment. So you should have a copy of this policy.
It was adopted in October of 2015.
16, so a little over a year ago.
Yeah.
Right. And at that time, I think we one of all the licenses, is that correct?
Right.
Yep. So you should have in your possession, and I'm sure we can get you a copy if you need one.
it's
But
possible.
there is an alcohol compliance policy that's in place today. And there's a section in it that deals with employee training. So the first thing is that you need to have manager and alternate manager in the business be tip certified. Is that happening today?
This is one of the next things we do. I forget to mention to you.
We were scheduled,
Yeah.
actually, tomorrow was somebody coming, but because of the weather, he lives in
Yeah.
closer to Boston, he canceled.
Yeah.
So next Wednesday, we have 8 people that are
Yeah.
going to be serve safe, and also tipped.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Is there anybody in the establishment today that is tip certified?
Yes.
Who would that be?
Brandon?
Okay, but what position does that person hold?
Not a manager, managerial position.
Okay.
Yeah.
And, again, I think it sounds like you're doing this part of it, but each employee also has to be trained in a similar fashion to tip certified, even if they're not actually tip certified. I think my colleagues are going to do this, but I'll take the opportunity while I'm here. We want it to be clear, if it's not, that this board takes your alcohol license very seriously, and following these requirements, we think is incumbent upon business owners such as yourself to do these things. And I think that's our position. And there are steps that are spelled out inside of this policy. And, I think tonight you'll probably hear a little bit more about that if you're not familiar with them in here. So For now, that's my comments, and
Thank you.
thank you.
Paul?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's always my thing, tips. Very simple, has to be done, needs to be done, must be done. It's on the line, it's quite available. My other thought on this is transaction card readers, as I think you already touched upon, where you swipe the license and it stops the sale. It's only, that's the way to stop selling. Very important. I know that one of our other towns very close to us, everywhere they have them. Swipe the card, it stops the sale. And everything that Selectman Hall's already said, I agree with. Thank you.
Jesse?
Gentlemen? All right, I do have a couple of questions. You'd mentioned that you had a policy in place where you visually gauged whether someone was 40 or under, and then you carded them. Was that a written policy?
Yeah, we had big signs out on the, everywhere. And now we have even more signs that just card everybody. But
Okay.
there's plaques and stickers and,
So in terms of the articulation of the new policy, which I think would be pretty much seamless, I think you'd cover everything by carding everybody and then getting the technology to put the stopper in place, will that also be updated? So that way it's on display for all your employees to see?
oh, it's already up, if you mean like now.
Well, I meant the new policy.
The new policy is, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we've already spoken with all the employees and we've already made signs and stickers and plaques and we put them everywhere. On all the registers, on the beer tap, on the entrance, on the wall, even when the customers walk in, so they know that they're going to be carded, so they can have their ID ready.
So that way there's an expectation on both sides of the counter?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
excellent, excellent. The clerk in question, were they of age to be able to sell alcohol?
My understanding is to serve it. I don't know what technically serving. I think the person that put the beer out is over 18, but the person that rang it up on the register wasn't.
So there were two people involved
Yeah.
in the transaction, but the person who actually presented...
The person that handles the alcohol is 18 and over, but
Okay.
the person that have some kids at the registers is 16 and 17.
Yep.
They'll ring up customers that order, their food, and they'll add a beer or wine to it, and they take the order instead of calling somebody or
Yeah, just as long as they're calling someone over of age, that's very important.
handle. Yep.
And as far as the concerns, I'm going to echo what my colleagues had mentioned. Obviously, this is something we take seriously, which is one of the reasons why this current board enacted this policy, because ultimately, you don't want to be that one establishment that contributes to something horrific. So I appreciate the fact that you're going to be taking measures in the future to change this wrong, and hopefully you'll never have to come before this board again.
That's what we're trying to prevent by seeing what further we can do, because even card everybody, let's say somebody just forgets and doesn't, then, we'll be here a third time and we'll go crazy. So that's what we're trying to integrate it into our computer system and ask the guys that are doing it, can we have something?
Right.
Like, when I think at Wegmans, when I went to the supermarket, they just punch it in, and it's not technically a swipe, but you read the person's birthday and you punch it in. Something that, can further that, because, you don't want to come here again, so.
That is true.
Trying
That
to
is
see
true.
what else could you possibly do to prevent, a
Excellent.
repeat.
And a seamless policy will do that.
Yep.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. No further questions.
Thank you very much.
John?
Mike? Yeah, Nick.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And, one thing that really, besides the fact of what my colleagues here have mentioned, was that, Tony, how you mentioned, learning experience and, maybe going back and looking over some of the policies that you had in place before. And, obviously they weren't up to date or you wouldn't have had this problem. But, with the tip certified, I can't stress enough also, hearing from Selectman Maynard is the importance of that and how it's, mandated and to make sure that everybody that's serving the alcohol along with, everyone else that may be in the future get trained on that. So that the 16-year-old that's ringing it in would have known the person bringing the beer has to check the ID, not the person that's actually rang it in that might have checked it, but the person that's serving the actual alcohol to the person. Things like that. Nick, you'd mentioned that, IDing everyone. There's a lot of places now are doing that, where it's required. You're driving, you have your license with you. You have to have it. You
Yeah.
You go to buy something, you need money. You know, these are the things that, you know, from here on out, you buy alcohol, you need an ID.
Yeah.
You know, that's it. You need to check.
More.
You need to pay. You need money to pay for the alcohol, so you can ask that and ask for an ID. Along with, you know, it seems like those are a little bit less, you know, costly as it would be to put it on an electronic system. But these are all ways that can, you know, can prevent this. Like you said, Tony, you know, finding ways that you can make it better, so you're not, you know, you're not back in front of us. So you're learning from this and taking it, that we do take it really serious. And you know, we don't, it was said a few years back, we don't want to be known as the town.
Mhm.
You know, we don't want any town to be known as that, but certainly not here. You made it clear that so far that, you know, it sounds like you're very
Yeah.
vested in what the town also, as a community, is, and
Mhm.
your business up there on 146. So, besides the fact that, you know, what my colleagues have mentioned, I don't really have any more, but just really reiterate the fact that, you know, I back them 100% on what they had said so far also, and just wanted to add that in also. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mike. Dave, you had one more question?
Yeah, if you don't mind. So you mentioned that you have a group coming that's going to do some tip certification and retraining of others within your company.
Mhm.
Do you have, as part of that process, are they going to sort of refresh your own knowledge, if you will, about what the rules are and who's allowed to serve?
We're
and-
also taking the class
you know,
also too, yeah, everybody.
I'm not completely familiar with some of these rules, but just the way you described who can check the ID and how old they have to be
Mhm.
was maybe a little out of line with what I thought was the right answer. I don't know if I'm right or wrong, but
Mhm.
listening to this stuff, I just want to make sure that you yourselves are keeping up to date with what the correct laws are to make sure that you're in compliance with all of them. So, you know, if
We'll
that's
get
part of
some
the service, or if you could
Better,
reach out and
like 100% information.
retrain
because
yourself, I think that would be.
I also don't know that answer to that question, Dave.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So given, you know, your circumstance versus mine, it seems like it's more important for you to know than me.
Yes, yeah.
And so,
Yeah, I always just thought the person serving it, but the person ringing it, but I'm not 100% sure on
Yeah.
that, so we'll have to check that out.
yeah, and
Yeah.
precisely who needs to be tip certified inside, it sounds like you're going to have plenty of people, so you're probably
Well,
covered.
we're going like to a bigger group instead of like 2 or 3 people that we usually did. It was like me, my wife, my mother, the manager, and maybe one other
Yep.
helper. Now we're just doing like a quick 10 in the front and
Okay.
and probably like another 5 later on, so.
Yeah, so I guess that's the one thing I'm encouraging now, is that you find a way to ensure that somebody in a position of responsibility understands what all the rules are, to
Yep.
make sure that you're complying correctly.
Taking this very, very, very serious.
Thank you.
That's 100% for sure.
We appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for coming in, and your establishment, you've been in town for probably over 40 years, and you've always been very, very good to the community. As you said, Tony, you are Sutton, you know? You've always been there and provided service to customers, to children, to everyone else, and when there's been a disaster, you've been there to help out people and stuff, and we're conscious of that. We hate to have you here, but we have a job to do, and we had to set up some rules and regulations, with a policy some time ago, and we're expected to follow that policy. So with the police doing their thing, having someone underage and making sure they haven't got alcohol before they go to your things, everything falls in line in some type of a policy. And so I'm glad, and what the steps you've taken tonight, that you've told us about tonight, I'm sure that you're going to do everything you can to make sure that you're not here again on these circumstances.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
with that,
Close the public hearing.
we'll close the hearing.
Well, we have 2 hearings we have to, we
We're
have,
going to do them separate.
Should we deliberate on this one and get it?
that's really up to you, Mr. Chairman. You can continue to keep the public hearing open and then hear the second Sutton Wine and Liquors, and then, you know, have discussion amongst the board on discipline after the fact.
What would the board like to do?
Yeah.
One at a time.
You want to do it at a time? I guess I'm open to either one, I don't know.
They're here, so let's close this one and take care of them, and then have the other one come in.
Mr. Chairman, I move to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
May I?
Yeah.
Thank you. So, just, maybe this is a good opportunity to do this. For the public, for the members of the public that are maybe hearing some of this for the first time, tonight what I wanted to do is give a little bit of background on the development of this policy by this board. Some time ago, we had some compliance checks, and we had some establishments fail those compliance checks. And at that time, there was no particular policy in place with this board. And speaking, if I may, for some of the other board members at that time, there was a general feeling that operating without the guidance of a policy was difficult to do. And we were trying to make a decision, in a sense, under duress, under the heat of the moment, if you will. So at that time, we, I think, issued stern warnings to the parties that had violated the alcohol compliance checks, and then we set about creating this policy so that at the time of some future alcohol compliance check failure, like we have today, we would have some predefined sort of thoughts in place about how to handle these things that were developed at a time where the heat of the moment didn't exist. And so that's what we have. And so for your benefit, if you apparently haven't seen this, what we've said in this thing is that a first offense, there's kind of a suggestion to do a warning to 7 days suspension. Second offense is a warning to 14 days suspension, and a third offense is a warning to revocation of your license. And further, it says that essentially these disciplinary guidelines that we have here are only guidelines, and we can choose to act in any way that we feel is appropriate in the circumstance. So now that that's over, Mr. Chairman, I guess what I would say for my piece here is that this is a first offense under the guidelines laid out here in our policy. I greatly appreciate that you have come before us really with proactive plans, things that you've already changed in an attempt to make this better. I think that demonstrates, from at least from my perspective, a real sense that this is an important issue, and you seem to be taking it very seriously. And with that in mind, I think I'd like to, my sort of sense of it, subject to hearing from the rest of the board, is that I would be comfortable sort of moving forward with a warning.
Great.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Paul?
As Dave says, strong language. It has to be listened to. It did go out with the licenses. You have to go by it. Tony, you've been here a long time. We all know that. And I'm going to go along with Dave Halls.
Jesse?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My thought on this is pretty simple, and I went back and I tried contemplating the last time we had this issue before us. And again, I reflect on some of the notes that I took and what my thoughts were on at the time. And when we had the first round of violators last year under the policy, we made one thing clear, that there's a 2-year grace period contained within this policy where you could have a clean slate. So since Tony's received the first notice, which would have gone out after we passed it with their license renewal, it's still within that 2-year time frame. So that being the case, to me, it is a first offense. And because they have not been before us before, they passed the last time compliance check was done under the policy, I too would be comfortable with a warning.
Mike?
To reiterate what my colleagues have said, we do take it really serious. It is something we take serious. Since the policy has been passed, there was a check cleared, not mentioned at all. No offense, you passed the test. that would make me look at it and say, okay, the first offense. The fact that, as you'd mentioned, Tony, being part of the community along with that the chairman had mentioned, years of, it's an embarrassment. They have to come in here and be the one that get caught for serving minors. All the people that you've seen over the years and their children grow.
Yeah.
Now you're serving their children.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's an embarrassment enough.
Point.
24 months, and you're back to first offense. It's a grace period that you get now, starting now.
Yeah.
24 months moving forward. Take it serious. Take to what we say here and read through the policy. And, it's easy to say you're going to do something, but to step up and do it and to train these guys so they know that you don't have to go through this again. And the embarrassment or sitting up here in front of us and having us have to do, again, follow a policy and do what it says. So I would agree with the warning. Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Thank you. Back in November 24th of 2014, Tony's Pizza failed the compliance check, and a stern warning was given. And then we had a brand-new policy that came into effect on October 6, 2015, liquor license regulations adopted by the Board of Selectmen. Then there was another compliance check on October 21st, 2015, where Tony's passed the compliance check. But now, November 16, 2016, Tony's Pizza failed a compliance check. So then, as Selectman Lemonick said about the 24-hour window of going back to the first offense, I would like to recommend to the rest of the board here, my other colleagues, that we give a stern written warning and count that as your first offense. We probably want to have a motion here, if that's okay with the board, or?
Mr. Chairman, I make the motion of Agenda 2 for Tony's Pizza. Motion to issue a written warning to Tony's Pizza for the liquor license violation that occurred on November 16th, 2017.
Second.
Motion is made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. So for your first offense, it's a written warning.
Everybody, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
No, you can, we'll just send it out to them with the warning. So, now that we close the public hearing,
Open it again.
we gotta open it again.
We don't need to reread that.
I don't think we're going to read the notice again, Jim.
Now, just make a motion to open
So
the public hearing.
we'll make a motion to open the public hearing again.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. And I'd like to hear from the police department, please.
This is particular to Sutton Wine and Liquors, so.
Correct.
You're still under oath, right?
Yes.
On November 16th of this year, the Sutton Police Department conducted compliance checks where we had an underage female come in and checked all the businesses in town that serve alcohol. During that time, one of the businesses that did not pass was Sutton Wine and Liquor. The underage female went in and picked up a six-pack of Twisted Tea, brought it to the counter where she paid for it with funds that were specific funds that were supplied by this department. At no point did the clerk at that time ask for her ID. She took the Twisted Tea out to an unmarked vehicle where Officer Monteverdi was and informed him what happened. Told him how she was not her identification was never asked for, and described the clerk. Officer Monteverdi contacted me. I was in charge of the operation. Informed me what happened. I spoke with her. She relayed the same information. And I went into the business and spoke with the owner and asked him about it. He said at that time that he was in the back room and that he had a clerk working. I spoke with that clerk, who then said that he had sold the Twisted Tea to the underage female without asking for her ID.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to hear from the board members. Dave?
Should we hear from?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, close the public hearing.
No.
Oh. Oh, I'm sorry. Vinnie, would you come up from Sutton Liquors, or your representatives? Yes, you solemnly swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I just.
Thank you.
I prepared a statement that I'd like to read to the board. I'm truly sorry for the inappropriate behavior of one of my employees. I understand that the action of my employees under my direct supervision are a reflection of me as well. I'm embarrassed beyond words at the results of the recent sting and the failure of one of my employees to recognize an underage minor and his failure to request identification. Since the last audit, Sutton Wine and Liquors had taken extreme preventive measures to ensure compliances. If you've visited the stores, which I know some of you have, you've noticed increased signage, bright yellow banners across the tops of the cash registers, Did You ID? On the bottom of the registers, it's as well, it says under 35, please ID. I also continue to use a third-party company to come in to do compliance checks. That's been going on since 2015. The BARS program, which I actually have the records from right here, come in twice a month to do compliance checks. And every one of the compliance checks has been a green light with no failures whatsoever. Every night that I leave, I remind the employees, make sure you check IDs. At this point, I'm kind of a little bit perplexed in the error of judgment by the employee with the preventive messages, the increased signage that I have up, the compliance audits that I have done twice a month in the reinforcement. All of the employees are tip certified. Every person that works for me. And thinking of the future, I think the only way that I can probably get, and actually I don't even think it can be guaranteed, but again, is to go by no ID, no sale, 100% ID. Being in a smaller town with Sutton where we know a lot of people, it's an inconvenience, but as it was already stated by many members of the board, it's probably the only way to do it. Can I guarantee it's going to be 100%? I don't think anybody can guarantee it, because I think one problem that comes with that is people get lackadaisical looking at the licenses. Are they, if they see somebody come in, are they really looking at it, or are they just going through the motions? I'm going to do my best to train people that have already been through it and retrain them and push that into them, and that's, I think, the direction. As I said, I do have a zero tolerance policy to selling to minors. The employee that sold it, Matt, was terminated as soon as I had found out about the compliance. I make no excuses, and I understand what the board has to do. I take this very serious. My employees take it very serious. I as well, I live in this town, brought my kids up into this town. I understand the importance of it, and I understand and accept whatever the board decides.
Dave?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, thank you for coming before us tonight. Like you have done in the past, I think you come before us with a very sincere response to the issue that we have before us. Truthfully, I'm concerned, maybe perplexed like you are, that it's happened again. I've been in your store when you weren't there, and I've watched people get carded. I don't know that it's an issue of not attempting to do this, and yet this is kind of a results-oriented, issue, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Are you telling us that you, in fact, are planning to adopt a 100% ID policy?
Yes, I am.
Okay. And obviously, you're aware of the new policy. You're aware that the last time that you were here, it sort of was, in fact, I think it was officially voted by the board to consider it a first offense.
I understand that fully. Yes, I do.
Okay. Thank you. No further questions.
Paul?
Again, I go right back to this again. The training, the tips training. And the same, as I mentioned to the other company, have you thought of the transaction registers that won't let you do a transaction unless an ID is physically put up?
I have thought about it. It's very expensive to get into that system for me to update it, and it's a small scale that I am. It's thousands of dollars for me to upgrade my whole system. Tens of thousands, actually,
Right.
probably closer to $12,000-$15,000.
And one thing I didn't mention the last time, I should have, this is our police department doing their job. And if they find something wrong, they're doing their job. Thank you.
Jesse?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening.
Good evening.
Out of curiosity, how long was the clerk employed for at the point of the violation? Do you know off the top of your head?
Probably 4 years, three
So- so
years.
it wasn't a
Yeah,
new
3
hire,
years,
someone
4
who'd been in
No, it
place?
wasn't a new. No, he's worked with me for a while. Yeah.
And he himself was tip certified?
Yes, he was.
If I remember correctly, the last time you were before us, you also fired the other violator. Is that part of your policy?
That is my policy. Zero
One
tolerance.
strike, you're out.
One strike, you're out. No second chances. Correct.
All right. Yeah, I'd just like to reiterate the importance, which I'm sure you know, it's your business, and obviously we as a board, we want you to be successful, but, you know, it only takes one, and that's what we're trying to prevent. That's one of the reasons why we were passionate about passing the policy. We've been trying to send a clear, consistent message, and of course, this board fully supports the police, as Chairman Maynard said. So, obviously, you've been before us now twice, within the 24-month time frame. So we're looking at a second offense here. So, yeah, it's going to be something, unfortunately. And hopefully, if you take this seriously, you go with the 100% carding. And again, I'm someone well beyond the age of issue, but when I get carded, I know personally I get a chuckle out of it. You know, I'm not offended, and hopefully none of your customers will be as well. Because again, as I said, it's your business, and we want you to be successful. So please, please do whatever you can to be proactive, get on top of this, and don't come before us again with this type of issue. Nothing else.
Mike?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks, guys, for coming tonight. It's, you know, a couple different things that came to mind over the last few weeks for me is the fact that, you know, it's tip certified, it's training your employees, it's, you know, it's the signs, it's you know, it sounds like we've tried that, you know, and you've mentioned it yourself, and that you've tried those, and, you know, you've got an employee that we find out tonight that's been there 3 or 4 years, and he's probably been through, you know, all the actions, and he still slips up. You know, so I think that the only way not to be in front of us again is to no ID, no liquor. You know, I think that that's, and you're right. It isn't 100%, but, you know, we're 0 for 2 with the other methods right now as we sit here today. You know, you brought something up today that, you know, you raised your children in this town. You're from the town. You're here to do, you know, a job to survive, and we want you to survive as a town. We want you to do well as a business. But, you know, as a board, we sit here representing 9,600, you know, community members and our children, and we have to do what's right also on our end, you know, to make sure that things are, you know, eventually that to eliminate all serving of minors, or as much as we can. You know, so it's hard for us, you know, because I've visited your establishment, and you know, but on the other side, I look at it. I've seen people get carded when I'm in there, but I look at it at the other side where it's okay. You know, 0 for 2, the methods haven't been working. You know, as far as we know, it's 0 for 2. That's all we can really gauge as a board, because there's been 2 operations that have gone on. So I think that, you know, so that you're not in front of us, you know, it's just a suggestion, maybe something you haven't tried yet that you can try is no ID, no alcohol. You know, so you know, thank you again for coming tonight, and And, that'd be my recommendation on that, and
No, and I agree with it 100%, but you know what, I want the board to understand that I do understand this fully and take it very, very seriously, because it is my business, and I'm in town and in the community as well. And unfortunately, nothing is going to be 100%, I don't think. That's what I aim for, there's no question about it.
Right.
That's what I aim for, is 100%. And that's what I'm going to do, is 100% carded. But whether it will be 100%, I don't think anybody can answer that question.
No, you're absolutely right.
That's the goal. That's my goal.
You're
There's no
absolutely
question
right,
about it.
Vinny. We can keep going, that there's nothing that's 100%. But there's 14 other establishments that, that are doing something out there that is working better.
Right.
So I think that we should move to some percentage, never mind thinking, okay, we're not going to get 100%. Well, let's get a percentage before we decide on what percentage is good or bad. Let's get as close as we can to 1%. And I think that that's the responsibility, that no ID, no alcohol. It's just it's as close as you can get, I guess. So and again, I would personally, and as a town member, I'd love to see more business in town, and smaller businesses that succeed and do very well, and that's what we're hoping for. We have to play by the rules, and that's something that every other business tries to do. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah. Thank you for coming in, Vinny. And just like I stated to the other establishment, on November 24th, 2014, you failed a compliance check. And then we had the new regulations on October 6th, 2015. Then October 21st, 2015, your compliance check was failed again. And now November 16th, 2016, you failed again. So we have a policy that was mailed out to you. We put a lot of time into this policy because we wanted something that we really had to go by. And we wanted the police to go by it, and it's our standards. We are the ones that sign your license, so we take this very seriously, as much as you do, and especially with the liability coming out of your store or coming out of a restaurant, we want to be conscious of all of that. So with that said, we have a motion on close the hearing, and then we have a motion.
Make a motion, we close the hearing.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion's closed.
Shall we have a discussion?
Sure, have a discussion. Dave?
Thank you. So I'd like to reiterate a couple of things if I could. So, first of all, I would say to my colleagues that I believe that you sit here being very sincere about your concern over the issue, working very hard to try to mitigate the circumstances that have caused this to occur. You've heard some suggestions from the board about some other things that might work. Of course, this board really can't tell you how to do it, right? That's your business. You run your business your way. But as I said earlier, it's also a results-oriented kind of situation, right? That it really comes down to the compliance checks themselves, and that's all we have to go by. And so, we've sat, as we've said earlier, through a number of these meetings and have talked quite a bit about how sincere we are and what this board itself wants to project, and that's why we developed this policy. And, from my position, I think as a second offense, if we as a board want to project that we are serious about this, I would recommend, my recommendation to the board is a one-day suspension. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Paul?
Yes, thank you. Vinny, you've heard it all. You've heard of both people, operations people talking. As Chairman Selectman Hall indicated, we do take it serious. It is a second, and I'm going to go with a one-day suspension.
Jesse?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I guess pretty straightforward. I mean, this is a second offense. It's clear. Our policy says, you have a 2-year grace period in which you can clean your record. Unfortunately, your second violation fell within that. So it's definitely going to have to be a suspension. And I think, because of the fact that you are taking this seriously, I would be comfortable agreeing with my colleagues that a 1-day suspension is justified.
Mike?
Yeah, it's not, it doesn't sound like at all that, and I hope I haven't come across as questioning your sincerity, Vinnie, and yourself on this matter and trying to find a way to resolve it. It's just a matter, again, agreeing with everyone else on, it is a second offense. I would agree to a 1-day suspension, depending though, do we decide which day?
I was going to get to that.
All right, because that does, again, it puts it on the terms of, it's a penalty, it's a suspension, but, again, you want to see you do well and succeed, depending on the day of the suspension. How would you get to that first and then? Because I would recommend a 1-day suspension, but not on a weekend.
Yeah, I was going to, when it comes to my turn, if it's okay if I speak.
Yeah.
Are you done, Mike?
I'm done. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Given a lot of thought, and because you've been here before, and now it's your second time in here, and actually third time, but second time with our new policy and everything, I agree with a 1-day suspension, and I think we want to be conscious, because you want to operate your business, and that's your livelihood, and that's your income. I do not want it to be on a weekend, but I would like to support a 1-day suspension on a Thursday.
I think that's appropriate.
Me? Oh, it's
Somebody
on.
make a motion, or?
I thought we were moving.
We have a motion on that, or
Are we still?
more discussion, or?
I guess I'd like to say this. I've been in management of businesses essentially for my entire career. And the concept of shutting down your business for a day, it bothers me a lot. I don't take that lightly. So I appreciate Mr. Kenny's suggestion that it would be overly punitive or a first offense or a first suspension, I think, to have it on a weekend. You've heard this a number of times. We want you to be successful, and I'm in full agreement with that. So, a Thursday sounds like a good compromise kind of day.
Mr. Chairman?
Do we have to pick the date? Do we have to pick the date now at this point?
I think it makes sense.
Yeah.
So if I may, Mr. Chairman, I would not recommend this.
I don't want to do it now with
Yeah,
Super
not
Bowl
right.
and everything else
Yeah.
coming up, but maybe we can pick a date, the end of February, to get it over with and then to move on. It would be a Thursday, February 16th, 2017.
Valentine's Day is around there, isn't it? Am I killing myself for saying that out loud, not knowing that?
You did.
That's the 14th.
Did I just say that out loud?
14.
14th.
Yeah, it's right around that date, give or
Want to
take.
get away? Commercials. Yeah,
Yeah, that's fine.
my mic actually works.
Good time to test it.
That wasn't good. I'm going to test to see if my wife watches. But
Any more discussion, or Paul, you want to read a motion, or?
Mr. Chairman, Agenda 2, motion to issue a 1-day suspension on a Thursday, being the 16th of February 2017, to Sutton Wine and Liquors for the liquor license violation that occurred on November 16th, 2016.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
all right.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Did you,
Wait a minute for them to clear out.
Do we need to announce that agenda item number 3 is?
yeah, we'll make an announcement that the individual in item number 3 is not in attendance. We will reschedule that. Thank you.
Here's my paper.
Thank you, John.
Good night.
Okay, next would be under Agenda 3. The people for this agenda is not here tonight.
That's right, Mr. Chairman. They asked it be postponed. They're not coming due to the weather, so they just asked it be postponed. And in the meantime, we will be in contact with them and schedule a new time that they come before the board.
Okay,
Okay?
okay. The next would be the Town Administrator's update.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A few updates for the board. The fiscal year FY18 budget update, I will give you a budget update generally at every meeting as we're underway with this process. MMA meeting is this weekend. I will hear from the governor and a number of other representatives as far as state aid projections. I'm reading in newspapers right now, it looks like a 3.9%, 3.7 to 3.9% budget increase, generally about $1 billion. So that's good news. You know, as I've done in the past, I will level fund state aid, Chapter 70 and UGR funds. You know, and if they come in and we're confident that those numbers are there and they're going to stay there, I will consider budgeting them in the at the May town meeting. If I'm not confident that those numbers are, or those numbers are still a work in progress, I will wait to fall town meeting to make those final appropriations. But we're dealing with a small amount of money. You know, Chapter 70 is generally about $37,000. Less than half of a teacher's salary, and, you know, UGA funds, which is state aid to the town, generally about $25,000. So very small amounts of money. I have thought about increasing Doreen DeFazio's hours. She's currently the energy manager for the town. She does a great job. She would like to be a town manager someday. I try to dissuade her from doing that, but it's her thoughts, not mine. But, you know, she's agreed to sit in on her own time. She came in today with Tim Harrison and myself as we were going over the budget process, and she was very active in that. But there's a lot of work going on that, you know, items are dropping through the cracks. We just don't have the personnel to accomplish it all. So right now we're considering increasing our hours, and there are a couple projects: the gravel pit, the Opticom issues we've been having with public safety out on 146, and some other issues. I don't know that we have the money to fund this position, these increased hours right now. So as a result of the budget meeting this morning that Doreen actually sat through, I'm really starting to question. Our financial status, not this year. This year we'll be fine with all the new growth we received, certified in October. But FY19 looks questionable. We were being asked to fund the school department at $350 plus $1,000, and healthcare increase this year is proposed to be $400,000. That's $750,000. We only received $650,000 through property tax 2.5 plus new growth, $650,000. That doesn't include state aid or any other types of funding. But so there's a limited amount of funding, and that we've done a 10-year forecast, and it looks like these numbers are going to continue at $650,000 to $700,000. And if we continue to get substantial increases above that, then ultimately, will we have to, start cutting employees and doing stuff that we don't like to do? But so I hate to be a naysayer when it comes to budgets. I typically come from a very conservative standpoint when it comes to budget. I like sustainability. I don't like to present a budget that is $200,000 over what we anticipate in the receipts next year, recurring revenue. So, again, I will present the preliminary budget to the board on February 21st, and we'll have further discussions. A lot of stuff going on at this budget. We're dealing with the police station building committee. We're about to hire a designer, and that person will hopefully start in the beginning of February. We may have an article to go before Maytown meeting to fund the police station. And we're looking to purchase land up on Pigeon Hill. I mean, there's a lot of different things going on in this budget, and I'll lay them all out for you on February 21st. The next item is Police Station Building Project. The meeting was held on January 4th. We selected officers of the committee. Wendy Mead agreed to be the chairperson. She did a great job on the middle school, high school project, has agreed to serve in that role once again, albeit reluctantly. Stephen Leclerc has agreed to be vice chairman of this committee, and Jerry Krieger will be the clerk. I'd like to thank all of them for serving in these roles, and they're the right people for these positions. The police station design is out to bid. We advertise in the Central Register. The bid opening is January 26th. Rufus Putnam roof replacement. The bid opening for this project was Thursday, January 5th. We received 6 bids, with the low bid going to JD&D Construction out of Webster, Mass, for a total of $12,000. We put $20,000 in the capital plan. The low bid was $12,000. Building Commissioner John Kuchar checked all the references, talked to a number of different towns and project managers, and I felt comfortable with his recommendation, and we issued a notice of award for this company. Hopefully, it'll be done in the next month or two, depending on the weather. Middle School, High School Building Committee met on Wednesday, January 11th, to decide how to spend the additional $295,919. After some discussion, a motion was made to spend the $295,919 on the design and construction of a sidewalk down to Shaw. The committee had a significant amount of discussion on this issue, and in the end, we felt that was, most important to continuing access to Shaw Farm, as well as the potential track and field that will hopefully go at that location in the near future. We're obviously there's a library proposed up at Shaw, and a sidewalk is necessary for the students and anybody, parents, to safely access Shaw Farm. Municipal auction. Auction was held on Municipal, closed, and the town will receive $27,009 when all equipment is picked up. We sold 2 cruisers for a total of $5,000, a highway dump truck for $6,700, a Ford F-350 ambulance, Selectman Maynard's toy down in the fire department for $2,500, not bad. In addition, we sold a Chevy Suburban for $3,700 and a number of containers from the transfer station. The Chevy Suburban monies will go into the drug forfeiture account, and the sale of the containers will go into the transfer station account. It was a big effort led predominantly by Debbie Jakes, and I appreciate that. And we received a lot more money than we would have received in the olden days when we advertised it in the Millbury Chronicle or the Worcester Telegram, and we had people bidding $400 for a police cruiser and so forth. So, a job well done by everybody. I appreciate that. That's all I have for updates, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Any comment, Dave?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the update, Jim.
Sure.
A couple of comments, if I may. Just the budget process and your discussion already about, the way things balance out. And we've had a really good run of solid budgeting, but that is the thing about town budgets, is that you can never feel comfortable. That as well as we plan and as well as we approach this from a conservative standpoint, there's always wrinkles coming at you. So That's, just the siren call to remain as conservative as we can. That being said, Doreen's been excellent. She is a terrific person, a very intelligent person, and, if you can find a way to take care of some projects, maybe it's a project basis kind of thing,
Yeah.
where you're sort of funding things one-off, I would be fully in favor of doing that. I think she has proven herself to be very worthy of that kind of work. So, I would, despite your budget problems, I would certainly support you in your thought around finding some additional things that you might be helpful with, so.
Thank you.
I too would like to thank those that have taken leadership positions at the building station project. I'm glad to hear you say that Wendy took it reluctantly, because we'd have to question her sanity if it was anything else with her experience with the school. So, I guess skipping down to the sidewalk, do we have any sense at this point?
We don't. I mean, ultimately, we had some consultants, engineering consultants, that gave us an estimate when we did the state bond bill issuance with former Senator Moore. That was a few years ago under Deval Patrick's administration, but it was just a shot in the air of the number. So I'm going to competitively bid this out for design. You're not required to do that under 30B, Mass General Law 30B. But I feel it's best to get a competitive process on design, and then the designer will establish a construction estimate. And from there, we'll see if we have enough money to complete this project.
Yeah.
Or we'll need additional funds,
So indulge me in that if you would. So just, pick a number, $25,000 more. Does that just come out of the capital fund, or does that require a special?
Well, a number, Chairman Hebert and I have talked about going to the state at some point. I don't know if that was confidential or not. It isn't now.
It's a good idea.
And
Road.
it is a state road, the M route, but I've also, I'd throw additional capital funds at that as well to finish off this project.
But it's not necessarily a specific, like a vote, unless, certainly for that small amount, you wouldn't be looking to have an override of any kind. So just
No.
normal capital.
No, yeah, we're funding, $100,000 items for the school, a boiler replacement, we've got a very healthy capital plan, a capital stabilization fund. If the plan works, we plan to pay off some debt within the capital stabilization fund this year using some of the new growth we received. So that'll make us even more conservative, but the capital stabilization plan, if this is accomplished, will grow to probably over $500,000. So we're trying to take care of it. We're using free cash to plan for capital items, and we try to preserve the capital stabilization fund and allow it to grow to fund more expensive items.
It's a great thing. And then lastly, you already took the words out of my mouth on that municipal bid thing. Just looking at these items and recalling the old days when we would sell things, this amount of money that you raised doing this is just amazing compared to
Yeah.
what it would have been. So, nice job, Deb.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, with everything been said, I agree. I got to set up for my
Oh, yeah.
presentation to the chairman. Hold on that for one moment. What we are doing here, this is presented from FEMA and MEMA of the Blackstone Valley Regional Emergency Planning Committee. The towns of Sutton, Grafton, Upton, Northbridge, and Millbury have been working for this certification through MEMA and FEMA, on top of the one that we just did with Central Mass Regional Planning. Untold hours have gone into this with these towns, and this is to protect the towns, to make a better town, and be hopefully ready for anything and for the good of all the towns. This was presented last Wednesday in Grafton. One of the newspapers were around there and took pictures. I can't tell you how many hours went into that. So, Mr. Chairman, as you do as you need. I'd like to say a thank you to the Highway Department for the new flagpole put up the Manchog Triangle.
I didn't mention that.
Jim, 100% on Doreen. See what she does, and I think she does just about the same in another town.
Yeah.
So she's already broke in on that. On the sidewalk, is there going to be any land taking required?
Well, it was part of the discussion I had this morning with Dave LaValle, who works for Andrews Engineering, and Andrews Engineering will probably submit a bid on this project, but, I'm going to be out to competitively bid. It is the M route, it is a state highway. He's going back to check the maps. We believe it's a 50-foot right-of-way. The roadway itself is not nearly 50 feet. So they do generally provide more than enough space on both sides of the road. So if it's 40 feet, there's 5 feet on each side. If it's 35 feet, there's more. So my guess is there's plenty of room without land takings, but it's always a possibility. It'll be particularly difficult when we cross that I don't know whether it is the bridge and the sewer, the wetlands in that section. So the initial thought is to have a crosswalk crossing at some point in the high school parking lot area, either the far end or up further to Boston Road, and crossing over to the westerly side to the left, driving down Putnam Hill Road, and then the sidewalk going down that side of the street. Fewer land takings, fewer property owners on that side, and probably less ledge that we've identified. There may be more. So probably fewer issues on the left side heading south.
And a good place for a couple more streetlights?
I don't know that it's required. As long as there's adequate sight distance. What's nice is when you're at the high school, you have a 20-mile speed limit in a school zone. I mean, you're able to limit the speed. When you get further down Putnam Hill, the speed kind of picks up. When you turn the corner and start going down, people can end up driving 40, 45 miles an hour, and it becomes more dangerous, and the sight distance isn't there. So, this is all stuff for the engineer to consider when they're doing the design of the project.
Thank you.
Jesse?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jim, excellent update as always. I don't really have any questions, a couple of comments. I think it's definitely appropriate not relying upon state aid. Again, as you said time and time again, those numbers are constantly in flux. So why plan on something that we may not get? Why cut off your nose to spite your face? So I definitely think that's appropriate. The one word that you repeatedly use and that I am huge supporter of is sustainability. I mean, ultimately, we don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves budgeting because, as we know, it's waves. We might be at a high point now, and if we hit a dip, the last thing you want to do is have a situation where something catastrophic occurs. That being said, if funds are available, as my colleagues has mentioned, I definitely support giving Doreen any type of opportunity as possible. Just her professionalism, her willingness to really serve our town has definitely been apparent. I had managed to speak to a couple of residents that came in and met with her and when the Sutton Power was rolling out, and they said nothing but praise. She answered every question. She treated them respectfully, so she is definitely someone, if we can bring on board more so, I think our town will definitely benefit. Very excited about the building, the police station building project. Obviously, I'm a member of that committee, and I agree. The three officers, they're gonna keep us all in line. They're all long-term residents. They all have vested interest, not only in this project, but the community, and they're gonna serve us well. So kudos to them, and thanks again for them willing to step up. Rufus Putnam, I'm very excited about that. For those residents who've never been in that building, and again, I'm not saying that I've been in there frequently, it's been many years since I've been in there, that's the closest thing we have to a museum in town. There are artifacts in there from residents that go back 100, 200 years. So the fact that we were able to allocate this monies to put a roof on top of that building for preservation, that's stuff that future generations are going to be able to come and appreciate. So thank you for putting that together. Sidewalk, excellent. I can't wait to see how that progresses. And last but not least, Municipid, thank you, Deb. And again, $27,000, that's not chump change. That's nice. It's nice to get a return.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the updates, Jim.
Sure.
Just a few questions that I had on that. There was one for first and foremost for Doreen. I mean, if we looked at it and we said, okay, the amount of money that we're going to save or receive with what she could create with having her there, the extra time, is it, look at it that way. Okay, having Doreen there for a few extra hours or whatever it might be a week
Yeah.
is going to save us X amount of dollars. It might make it easier to fit it in.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've already looked.
Well, yeah, it's a great point, particularly on the gravel pit. We've had some interest from gravel developers or, people that dig gravel, interested in the gravel pit. But I don't have the time to,
Right.
go out to bid or have, appraiser come in and figure out how much gravel is actually at that site and all these other steps that need to be taken. And the similar steps that we took back in 2008 or 9 when we tried to auction off or sell the gravel pit and the land. Right now, we're just offering up the material on the property. We're not selling the property itself, but we're just trying to sell the material. Half the site's in aggregate, owned by Aggregate Industries. Half the site's owned by the town of Sutton. The line goes pretty much down the middle of the hill. So there are a lot of issues that go into this. But you're right, the potential return on investment for Doreen.
Yeah. So, again, I support that fully. On the 12,000 for the roof, you'd mentioned 20,000 was in the budget for that.
correct.
Where does the 8 go, out of curiosity?
Goes back to the Capital Stabilization Fund. We did that some years ago when Tim Harrison developed this prior to my arrival, that we specifically write these articles for this specific purpose. The article reads Rufus Putnam roof replacement. And we budgeted 20,000, it only cost us 12. Since there's nothing else associated with Rufus Putnam roof replacement, it all goes back into the Capital Stabilization Fund. So it's good. It kind of, encourages us to get the best price.
Yeah.
It encourages all the different departments to get the best price, and that's why we write very specific articles, because if it's not within the writing of the article, it's not legitimate for that purpose.
Great,
So,
thank you.
yeah.
Again, to reiterate, the police station, good to see that's coming along, the committee put together. The middle school or the high school building committee coming up with the idea of using that towards the sidewalk. I think John had mentioned that also, if that's the same, what we were talking about earlier, going to the state and saying, okay, here's 300, looking for a match or some money from them, knowing that we came up with this amount. Is that pretty much what?
To do something there,
I think that's a great idea.
We're not done talking.
Yeah. So, and then I had just, out of curiosity, driving down that all the time, thought about it, and just different ideas. Maybe, again, they're going to come up with one, but a crosswalk there at the bridge, a light, a flash, something, just because the amount of money that would be saved through that portion, if we could create some other way to slow people down till they're past that curve.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's possible that we could do, a
have to build a
crosswalk with
bridge.
a warning light.
Yeah.
That, flashes 20-mile-an-hour zone or whatever, just to remind people.
Bump.
A speed bump and we probably can't do that on a public way.
Some of those reverse tire poppers.
Yeah.
Maybe that,
But
is that too extreme?
we will work with the state and try to figure out the best way to get that done. Hopefully,
Yeah.
The 300 is not that far off.
Right.
But we'll have to find out.
I think it's fantastic. I really do. I was excited when I saw that update.
Yeah.
It was along with other ones, but that was one that was big. And thanks, Deb, for Municipid and helping out with that. Like Selectman Lemanik had mentioned, that's not chump change. It's
Yeah.
$27,000 compared to what you're used to, and
Yeah.
it's probably a big difference. I don't remember or wasn't involved in the bidding process then, but I'm sure
Huge
people got a
difference.
lot of vehicles for a couple $100.
Big difference.
Yeah. So.
The Fazio money for you.
Yeah, there's the DeFazio money, things like that. Again, just the return on investment, looking at it from that standpoint and saying, okay, would we make the money we'd save or make or create that's hidden that we might not know about that she could find for us, might well
Right.
prepare for years to come.
Right.
So, thank you,
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks, Jim.
Jim, thank you for your update. In regards to number one, Doreen, I think she's done a superb job here in town, just with the energy fairs that she's done here and done in Millbury. A lot of people didn't know what an energy fair was before, and she's educated a lot of people on that. And then you look around at our LED streetlights, and the mannerism, the professionalism, everything that has going for her. She's a great person. If we could, to try to put her into some type of extra hours or whatever, but I want to be cautious because I don't want to do something now and then have to let her go.
I know. See, that's the problem.
You're going to have some type of understanding there.
Right.
And I'm going to jump down to number 4. I'm very grateful that the school building committee are all in favor of the $295,000 for the sidewalk, to put that money in there. This has been something that's been in the talking stages for quite some time, and Senator Moore, Richard Moore from Uxbridge, put in a $350,000 under a bond bill under Governor Patrick's budget, and it didn't have any legs.
Yeah.
It didn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
But now, being on a state road, we just did a project down at Marion's Camp, and one of the main things that made that push through is we had a little bit from town funds, we had state funds, we had federal funds. This is what they want for all these types of grants, is for everyone to get together and everyone to give a little bit.
Have skin in the
Well,
game.
I maintain it's a state road through District 3, through Central Mass Regional Planning. Maybe we got some input there. I'm going to mention that to them. And we're more than a stakeholder here. Sutton's come up with almost $300,000. It'd be nice to see, once we get some type of a design or what the cost is going to be, is have the state give the rest of the money, because this is for, number one, it's for the safety of the kids and people that want to walk and everything else. I think it's a really good project. So, thanks, Jim, for
Thank
your
you.
update.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Next would be, I'd like to combine it with announcements and Selectmen's Roundtable.
I'm all set, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Paul?
I've already had mine, thank you.
Jesse?
I'm all set, thank you.
I'm all set. Thank you.
Yeah, I have none. And then correspondence, I know we have none that I know of. Any business topics? So I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
It's a good motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.